Basically, channeling is a flow state. We've all experienced being in the flow where we lose track of time and we get totally absorbed in what we're doing, and we're much less conscious of what we're doing. So that is essentially a channeling state. Whenever you lose track of time, whenever you're really deeply engaged, for example. So some examples of this in terms of athletes, Bruce Lee, I would say, was in a channeling state frequently when he was doing his martial arts. If you've seen him, there's an amazing video of him using nunchucks, and this is before CGI, using nunchucks, you know, the sticks with a string attaching them, to play ping pong. But not just playing ping pong with one person, but playing ping pong with two people on the other side. And it's astounding. It's just literally astounding. Artists, anybody who's really deep in their work, Picasso, Van Gogh, I'm sure they got into that state. If you've seen the documentaries on the glass blowing artist, Dale Chihuly, he gets into that state. You can tell he's just in the flow. Musicians, if you've ever gone to a Grateful Dead concert where you like Jerry Garcia, he just gets into it, and the Grateful Dead will play for hours. And another one that I love is Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen's known for 3.5-hour concerts, if not 4 in some cases. Usually he gets cut off because they're closing the venue and they don't want to pay the staff overtime. But Bruce will play and with no warm-up act, and he just is so into it. He's totally channeling. And many actors find themselves absorbed in roles, and they will get so absorbed in a role during the filming of, say, a movie, that they will their personalities will change, and some of them will resist interacting with other people as their normal persona. So it's about being tuned in, being aligned, being in a state of allowing, letting go of resistance, and flowing is one set of words that applies. So let's talk about concerns before we get too deeply into this. The spiritual realms, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, you can take it or leave it. I have no qualms if you disagree with me in any way. But I think the spiritual realms are much like Earth, and I've determined this from many years of study, at least 45 at this point. And from everything I can tell, the spiritual realms are much like the Earth realms in that there are nice spirits and not so nice spirits. There are jokers and there are trolls, and there are all types. So you want to keep an eye towards the neighborhood you hang out in. You know, if you were to go to a dangerous neighborhood on Earth, you would be cautious. You know, you wouldn't do certain things. You'd do other certain things. You'd be relatively careful. So how do you ensure that you're in a good neighborhood on the spiritual side? Well, it's pretty easy. It's love and light. The real issue is if you are in a state of concern or fear, that's the thing that will attract energies that might play games with you, so to speak. And there have been channels who were very good initially, and it kind of got to their ego, and then they began to, their material began to decline in quality. And that's a personal opinion, but I think you'll see the way that can happen for individuals, because you get a little wrapped up in it, and you know, we're human, and I'm not judging those people badly about it. We're all human, and it's a thing that happens. So what are the best ways to protect yourself? Minimize your fears. Whatever you do to minimize your fears. And the best way to do that is to maximize the love and the light that you represent. the more loving you are, the less the bad actors, so to speak, the jokers, the ones who would try to convince you of something that may or may not be true or beneficial, they do not enjoy love and light. They just don't. And when you radiate that, when you have confidence in your personal position, they just leave you alone. They don't want to be around you because it's painful to them. So what are some ways of maximizing your love and light? Centering yourself. Having a very clear and positive intent as much of the time as you can. There's a technique known as the pyramid of light, where you envision yourself encased within a large pyramid made entirely of white, loving light energy, covering you on all sides. And this is something used by a number of people. Seeing yourself encased in an orb of light, calling in assistance from your guides, guardians, and angels, and just having the confidence that you are protected. I know quite a few people who don't feel the need for protection. I know a person who did feel the need initially, and she found a prayer essentially that she would say before she did anything of the sort. And eventually she realized she didn't need it anymore. She was in a different place of confidence. So those are a few words there. As I mentioned, happy to take questions now or later about any of this. So how does channeling work? Basically, it's a process of raising your energy and creating a bridge, an energetic bridge, which is basically telepathic. So this image here shows somebody in an orb of light. Now this person, I would assume based on their presence in the painting as represented, is somebody who is just positive to begin with. And that orb represents the shield that positivity gives you, the shield that being a beautiful, kind, compassionate, loving person creates an energetic field around you that the other beings aren't interested in playing with. So there are a number of types. Let's start here. One is intuitive sensing. We've all had a gut feeling, an intuitive sense of something. The more you meditate, the more you contemplate, the more you try and learn more about yourself and spiritual subjects, the closer you'll find your intuitive sense coming to the surface. And the thinner the veil becomes between the physical and the non-physical. Some people say, oh, I wish I could see spirits. Well, maybe, maybe not. You know, I do believe, and there's plenty of evidence out there from psychics who are clairvisual, that we are surrounded constantly by beings at different wavelengths, different frequencies. But it's a nice thing not to be interrupted by them. If somebody just suddenly popped into your visual field, I think most of us would be like, you know, when your dog or your cat or your spouse or your significant other comes into the room and you didn't hear them and suddenly you jump, right? It's a natural response. So that is part of the reason that we have developed this filter that protects us. There are some people where that is thinner from the very beginning. Children, for example, will say, I'm seeing things, and the parents will be like, oh, it's okay, honey, there's nothing there. But they may actually be seeing something, and that doesn't really help when they see something. So I encourage all of us to be more compassionate and allow for the possibility of those things if you're dealing with a young person who's seeing things. And it's a real process of adjustment. But in the end, one of my mottos is it's all good. Those things are meant to be. If a person comes along, a child comes along who has a thinner veil, who has more openness to those things, I believe it's meant to be, and that there's a reason for that. that will exhibit itself in their life sometime along the way. Some people are clairaudient, they hear things. Some people just have a sense of concepts and convey them. Some see images, some just know things, they have a sense. So what are some of the ways in which channeling can happen? Automatic writing is one. Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote the Conversations with God series of books and is still producing books to this day, he's got probably close to 15 or 20 to his credit at this point. He, at least in the beginning, did everything through automatic writing on a yellow legal pad. And some folks, many channels hear and repeat. I know of somebody who started with automatic writing and it progressed to automatic typing. And much like trance channeling, in trance channeling, the person goes into a trance and the partner, I like that term, on the other side, takes control of their physicality and is able to translate concepts through them telepathically, which they then translate into the appropriate vocabulary. Some channels can only convey information that they have knowledge of already. In some connections, the channel can come through with the sounds of a language they don't actually know. So it's really a widely varied collection of styles and types.